Alright everyone, we start off today talking about the latest drone strike that Biden conducted. Beijing Biden has decided to randomly bomb things in retaliation for the dead Marines. And by the way, the other day he swears up and down that ISIS planners were killed the other day in a drone strike, but you're never going to know their names, so basically fuck yourself. As for yesterday, there was another strike, and I believe the U.S. has confirmed it was a U.S. strike. There's one problem. We're getting reporting on the ground. Now, keep in mind, this isn't Western reporters. This is Al Jazeera and like the Taliban press, basically. They're reporting that multiple children died in this blast. Now, I'll get into that a little bit. First and foremost, before I get into this somewhat complex story, and I see a lot of simplistic takes, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it. First and foremost, there will be a pinned comment down below if you're watching this video on YouTube with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind that I make 2 videos every day that go there, and they don't go on YouTube at this point because YouTube doesn't allow you to talk about a lot of interesting topics or have certain opinions on mundane topics like medicine. Everybody's favorite, by the way. Now, here's the thing. We've got to take this with a grain of salt, first and foremost. This is coming from Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is sort of like Eastern Bloc-ish, like less than RT or something, but they don't, it's not exactly pro-U.S. forces in Afghanistan newspaper. It's sort of like the equivalent of CNN. CNN, if you're reading about certain things, you're not going to get the straight story. Like about Biden making a mistake. CNN will softball him, if they even report on it at all, and oftentimes there's a lie by omission, they don't even bother reporting on it. Likewise, Al Jazeera is automatically going to tend towards hyperbolic reactions in such a case. Now, here are the possible realities about what happened, because it appears that the strike did occur, and there are children dead there. The first possibility is that appearances are deceiving, and that's horseshit. This is footage and shit from a different event. Terrorists blew up a car and then blamed U.S. drone strike. They took the corpses of kids and dragged them to the crater that was still steaming and said, oh, look, the Americans killed some kids again. It's not likely that this is just total propaganda in that sense, but it is possible. We have to acknowledge that until we get confirmation otherwise. The second, and I think most likely possibility, is that this was an accident and Biden bombed the wrong target, which makes sense because he's incompetent. The U.S. military, I don't think, has nearly as good logistics as they would want you to perceive them as having on the ground in Kabul, especially with the haphazard withdrawal. And really, drones are accurate, but it's one small step from hitting that building and accidentally hitting the van in front of it and splattering a bunch of civilians. The problem is this. This is what makes this, in my mind, the most likely. We got a Pentagon report not that many years ago that 75% of all drone casualties were civilians. They're not terrorists. They're not even combatants of any form. They're women and children and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that means, in my mind, it is more likely than not, based on that simple statistic, that the same thing happened here. That at least some of those killed were civilians, unfortunately some of them little children. Now, there's a third possibility. We do have to take this into consideration. The third possibility is, an ISIS member was killed. Unfortunately, they were using human shields, or the U.S. decided to take the shot while there were kids or women or whatever near the vehicle or near the building. There's a precedent for this happening. If the U.S. deems that the target is reasonably high profile, they may say, well, the civilian casualties are acceptable. It's only 3 or 4 people. We got to get this dude. The other problem is that if Biden's story holds up, which is there was an imminent attack, that would indicate this was probably a suicide vest wearer with human shields that was going to blow himself and all these kids up anyway. But then again, the U.S. is still responsible for the situation. By the way, can't they develop a drone that's capable of sniping things instead of just blowing them up? Just putting that out there for certain logistical purposes, that might be a little bit of a limited advantage in certain engagements, like when you've got a bunch of kids around a suicide bomber. Regardless, it's likely that this event is being at least half-assedly reported fairly. That is, that there were kids killed in a drone strike. I don't know what Biden is doing at this point, because we should just be focused on leaving. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the fact is that Biden caused this whole fiasco. He kept us involved for 6 additional weeks, damaging the trilateral agreement that would have, I think, held up until we were pretty much gone. At the very least, if Afghanistan falls after you leave, At the very least, your own civilians aren't in the middle of things. In the chaos, because ISIS has so many potential targets at the airport, Afghan civilians are also being killed and suffering. Now we're looking at a situation where you might have multiple groups fighting over chunks of Afghanistan for the foreseeable future, causing yet more death and mayhem, while intermittently potentially attacking the Western world. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that one or more of these groups might launch off another 9/11 at some point. Then our government can rinse and repeat, invade another country that had nothing to do with the situation, and push more authoritarianism. I guess that's what they're settling to do. Like, well, we got to get out of the opium fields, but there's like plenty of countries we can invade. Just throw a dart at the dartboard, throw a dart at this map, and wherever it lands, if it's not a first world nation in NATO, we'll invade it. Or a nuclear state. It's the only other possibility. Iran's speeding ahead supposedly with building that. Again, we've been hearing that since, 1992 or 94 or something like that they're a few months away from having the bomb. They don't have it so far, and trust me, I don't even care if they get it at this point. That's about all. Peace out.